I know, guys. I know. I'm late to the party on this one. But here's my spoiler review for It Chapter 2. I won't spend too much time going over the plot because most of us who have seen this movie saw part one and know where we're at, saw the miniseries from the 90s and kind of know how things go, or read the book and kind of know how things go. So there's not really much point. Bottom line is all the kids from the first movie grew up and came back as adults, looking like this, to finally take out Pennywise for the final time. Now, the one thing I want to point out is that the characters are fantastic in this movie. Everything you've heard about Bill Hader is true. He absolutely steals this fucking movie. One of the few complaints I have is something about his character story, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. All that aside, he is phenomenal. He is the perfect Richie, and I just thought he really stood out. But I don't want to get away from how important. But I don't want to overlook how good a couple other people were in this movie. One of them is Jessica Chastain. She is phenomenal as the older version of Beverly. I have not yet seen a movie where Jessica Chastain has not been fantastic. She's been in some movies that weren't great, but she has been fantastic in them. Another one I don't want to overlook, James McAvoy. I know most people that are into movies like us know him pretty much as Charles Xavier, and I get it. That's probably the most popular role he's played so far. But he is damn good here as the older version of Bill. And he steals a few scenes in his own right, even a couple with Bill Hader, and Bill Hader pretty much walks away with this entire movie. I also don't want to overlook Bill Skarsgard and how well he played Pennywise in this film. He is better as Pennywise in this film than he was in the first. In this film, Pennywise has got a bit of a chip on his shoulder, and I think Pennywise is much more ferocious. He is definitely aware that these kids are back, and he has a bit of a score to settle of his own. And I think that makes the battle between him and these characters, the conflict, that much more dense and that much more palpable. And I think it's that much better to watch as viewers. I'm gonna go over some of the positives. One of the positives is they kept a lot of that coming of age vibe from the first movie. Everybody loves coming of age movies. We all love movies like was it Stand By Me or Fast Times at Ridgemont High, something where kids are kind of coming into their own. That was really, really present in the first movie with these kids, kind of transitioning from the children experiencing all of this, going into this craziness, and kind of pushing them into adulthood in serious situations. I think they kept a good part of that in this movie, and I think it gave everything a bit of a feel from the first one while pushing forward into this new incarnation of these characters that we see as their adults. Another thing that I really liked about this movie is they reimagined some of the scenes and some of the dialogue from the 90s miniseries. They kind of mixed it up and made it a bit of Easter egg, a bit fan service, but still fit it all into the movie to where it doesn't really interfere with the flow. It doesn't take you out and make you feel nostalgic. You just remember that that's the way it was said, this is the scene that they were at, but it's still part of this movie, and it really makes everything a lot funner to watch. It does kind of give you a little bit of that nostalgic feel without drawing you out of the movie that he's trying to give you. That said, I do have a couple of negatives about this movie that I want to point out. One is the not quite subplot that they didn't really talk about, but introduced you to late in the second act and never really explored, when they give you the impression that Richie is gay. I don't care if a character is gay, but it's not talked about in the first movie at all. I don't know if it's in the book because I haven't actually read the book. It's not discussed in the original miniseries. I've never heard anybody mention it. But they drop it in here late in the second act, right before you're moving on to the third act where you have to finalize everything. They never explore it. There isn't even hardly a reference to it until you get into the final battle, and Richie's got a little thing going on with the monster It, and there's a little piece of dialogue It says about knowing his secrets, and that's the only mention you get the rest of the movie. They force this shit in there, and they never really explore it. And it seems like they did it only because they want to say, hey, social justice warriors, look, I made one of the main characters gay. Congratulations, you get the social justice award for forcing a gayness into a character, but it didn't fit. And that was the only time in the movie where I kind of looked up and just kind of was like, really? And that was exactly my response. You can ask my girlfriend. She looked at me as soon as that happened, and that was my response. I just kind of threw my hands up. I was like, really? And it took me about 10 minutes to get back into the movie after that. My only other negative about the movie is that the movie's probably about 20 minutes too long. And while I was looking around finding some stuff to do a little bit of reading before I sat down and did this, I came across an article that said they almost split this movie into two parts. To be absolutely honest, you could have cut 20 minutes out of this movie and actually gave it a little bit better flow, and just made it just a little bit better. I'm not saying I really disliked that the movie was 2 hours and 40 minutes long or 2 hours and 45 minutes long, but the reality is you could have cut some of the fat off this, made it about 20 minutes shorter, and given the movie a much better flow and kind of streamlined things a little bit. I mean, you could have cut out the whole Richie's gay thing. You could have cut out some other not quite sequential things. You could have trimmed down a couple of segments, and it probably would have flowed a little better. Those are my only two real negatives. The only other thing I want to mention about the film is the opening scene, and you see it right here. This is actually the first view you get of Pennywise in this film, and I think that is phenomenal. I think that's an amazing picture right there. The opening sequence of the film, you start out, and this is a spoiler review, so I'm going to say it again. I say this all the time in all my reviews. I don't do non-spoilers, so I'm spoiling some shit in this video. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, if you're one of the 4 people that hasn't, you're about to hear some shit. In the opening scene, you are in modern-day Derry for some kind of a town festival, and there's these 2 young gay men, a couple, who are at this carnival, and they're being accosted by a couple of backwards-ass teenagers that are from Derry. Now, I know some people on social media were kind of shitting on this opening scene, saying it was gay bashing, but I don't think it was gay bashing as much as it was a visual display that Derry is very much a town caught back in old ways of thinking, old ways of doing things. The town just has not progressed, in part because they still have this Pennywise thing. They're still just not a very, I hate to say progressive because I'm not a progressive person by any means when it comes to politics and stuff like that, but they're not a very progressive, forward-thinking kind of town. They are very much stuck in this antiquated way of doing things, and I think that whole scene was just a visual representation of where Derry still is now compared to where it was back in the first film, Chapter 1. I don't understand why people were so pissed off about that scene. I mean, visually, the optics, sure, it was some gay bashing going on, but when you understand the entirety of the situation, the larger picture, I think you can understand it from a storytelling perspective. You don't really have to get mad about it. That's just my review of it, Chapter 2. Honestly, I give it, if I got to give it stars, I got to give it 4 out of 5 stars. It was a bit too long. The Richie's gay subplot took me out of the movie for a few minutes, but otherwise, a good movie, not quite as good as Chapter 1, but still a hell of a movie to go watch. I may go see it one more time before it leaves theaters. I'm most certainly going to buy this on Blu-ray when it comes out, or buy whatever box it's going to probably come out with Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 together. And I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you haven't seen it, I hope you will go enjoy it. Like I said, this picture right here is amazing. That's going to be a screensaver on my phone, I think. I think that's fantastic. Just visually, it's stunning. Every bit as good as the first. Fits right in. The adult cast was fantastic. The young cast was fantastic. Everything about this movie was done very, very well. By far the best incarnation of a Stephen King novel yet to hit either the big or the small screen. And I really hope that they go after a couple more of his movies, let guys like Andy Muschietti really explore the mythology of some of the stuff that King writes and bring great movies to the screen. So, see you guys later.